The short story I read was called The Life You Save May Be Your Own by Flannery O'Connor. This story was about a man named Mr. Shiflett, which I'll get back to his name a little bit later. But basically, he came to this house that was kind of in the middle of nowhere, where this old woman lived with her daughter. Her daughter had kind of a mental issue, so you couldn't really tell how old she was, but it was kind of suggested that she was kind of like an old maid. She'd been living at home for a while. And the man came and started doing odd jobs for the mom, and he was constantly talking about how he didn't know what the world was coming to, and that it was all turning out bad, and that all the women were bad anymore, and he wished that he could just find a pure woman who would be able to be his wife. So some time goes by, and he's fixing all the things in their house, and one day he decides that he is going to marry the daughter. And so they go to the church and they get married, and that's great. So then he decides that he wants to talk to the mom about taking her on a proper honeymoon. So he kind of gets their mom to give them a lot more money than she was really comfortable with so that he could take her to a hotel, to a nice place. Well, it turns out that he was really just trying to get her money, and he left the daughter in a bar with the bartender and just drove away. And as he was driving away, he happened upon a hitchhiker on the side of the road. He picked up the hitchhiker, and it was a small boy. And all of a sudden, he says to the boy that he should go home because he ran away from home when he was younger, and that he always regretted it, and that his mom was a good person, and he had always just thought that she wasn't when he was younger. And the boy gets really mad and doesn't want to hear this, so he jumps out of the car. And basically, the man just drives away, and he doesn't turn around and go back for that girl, even though he realizes that what he did was wrong. And this story was a really good example of modernism, because modernism, for the first time, kind of explored a different kind of hero. Because before, the hero was always kind of a person that the reader would just kind of like no matter what, because they were like a good person that just happened to be in bad times or something. But in modernism, the hero was somebody that you wouldn't necessarily like all of the time, because they weren't necessarily a great person, but they tended to do the right thing when the situation demanded it. So although Mr. Shiflett left that girl and was clearly not highly moral, he also picked up the hitchhiking boy and tried to get him to go home and do the right thing when the situation demanded it. So even though he wasn't the greatest guy, he still kind of came through in a way. And you never get to know if the boy went back to his family, but you kind of hope so, and that his influence kind of made that happen. So also his name, Mr. Shiflett, kind of goes along with the modernism period, because it was a big shift in the culture, and everything kind of began to change, and people began to explore new ideas. And so this story was just a really good example of modernism.